Look right into your podcast app. You'll see there's a discourse happening. Is this book a masterpiece or problematic? One's a lifelong diehard fan, the other's a first-time reader. Both are really smart and funny and attractive. Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley Hive. Talking twins and hierarchy. Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley Hive. Relentless focus on their bodies. Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley Hive. What do they mean by all American? Sweet Valley, Sweet Valley Hive. No sex, just titillation.
Hi.
Hi, good morning. Hi, and good morning.
Hi and good morning. We decided to record this introduction after recording a couple of episodes to give a little bit of context about the books, about ourselves, and how and why this little book club has come about. So, what is Sweet Valley High?
So, my understanding of Sweet Valley High, and I'm going to try and actually go back to my understanding before reading the first book, was it's a universe in which there are these two blonde twins, and they kind of shop and date, and it's like a soap opera. And there are like a bajillion books that spun off TV shows and maybe a movie. And it just basically follows the two twin girls as they navigate life. Yeah, they do get older because they like go to college in Sweet Valley University, ? And they have friends and they're glamorous.
Yeah,
That's all I
pretty
know.
much. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So started, first one, Double F, came out in 1983, and the books were published for 20 years. There were 181 books in total, and your classification of it as, did you say soap?
I did.
Yeah. So I think is very apropos because what I learned when doing some Googling is that Francine Pascal, the creator, originally actually, according to what I read, wanted to sell it as a TV show. And she was
Okay.
trying to shop it around as a basically teenage soap opera and realized she would have better luck doing it as a YA book series. There was a group of ghostwriters that wrote under the name Kate William. Francine Pascal was responsible for, she kind of created the initial idea. She developed a lot of the world and the stories, and for each book she gave the ghostwriters a short sort of bible of what the story would entail. So she, I think, was very closely involved in that way, but didn't actually write the books. One interesting thing I read was that it was seen as kind of a response to realistic fiction for young adults. So things like Judy Blume were doing realism for kids and teenagers, and this is meant to be, okay, well, let's go the total other direction and be more kind of fantasy. It started with Sweet Valley High, and yeah, like you said, there were a lot of spin-offs. There was Sweet Valley Twins, Sweet Valley Kids, which was younger, Unicorn Club, which was like junior high, Sweet Valley University, and then there was this other thing of like called Senior Year and Sweet Valley Confidential, and then there's this other spin-off of like Elizabeth Goes to London, long story.
Do you have a sense of how they were received? Like, was it Harry Potter level hysteria? Was it just like something that came out every couple of months and so people were just like interested? Like, was it more a Scholastic Book Fair thing or like a lining up to buy them thing? Do we know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I do know that it was record breaking in terms of, like, I think I read it was the first either book of that genre or book of this type to be like on the New York Times bestseller list, or broke some sort of records with respect to that. Sold some huge millions numbers of books. Let me check. New York Times bestselling author Francine Pascal's Sweet Valley High series has captivated generations of teens and adults, selling over 60 million copies worldwide.
Seems like a lot.
Sounds like a lot to me. In addition to the book series, there was a TV show called Sweet Valley High that ran for 4 seasons in the mid-90s, and it starred Brittany and Cynthia Daniel as the twins. And I've actually noticed that Over the years, like in adulthood, whenever I try to connect with people by asking them if they were fans of Sweet Valley High, often people didn't read the books, but they either like casually watched the show or they remember the theme song.
So this is true for me. I had not seen the TV show. I know nothing about it except that I knew that the titular twins, and I try to say titular at least once an episode. So listeners, listen out for titular.
I'm cutting that. I am cutting that. You think I'm keeping it? I'm cutting it.
But I knew those twins from that Disney Channel movie where they play the UVA basketball players. But I had never seen the show, and I knew nothing about it. And then Pardo played the theme song for me, and I had this really weird experience where I could sing along to the theme song, even though it was like, I don't think I've ever heard this before. And then I'm singing along to the theme song. It is truly a wild experience, listeners.
Yeah, the theme song, which was sung and I believe also written by Kathy Fisher and Ron Wasserman, who did about half of the soundtrack, including one of the other really, really great songs, Rose Colored Glasses, from the SVH soundtrack. But that theme song is so uniquely fantastic. It was such an earworm at the time, and there are so many people that when you even ask them about the book series, they start singing the theme song. Like, people remember that song decades later. So because we love this song so much, we were thrilled to have electro synth pop duo Yessie create a loving homage inspired by the song for our theme song. I'll just say, I think Sweet Valley is my number one biggest nostalgia thing, period, from childhood. So, I loved Babysitters, all of it, but Sweet Valley was number one. And some of them we had lying around the house, and I was just introduced to them, like from what my sisters had. And they were really special to me. I read them out of order, and I would also check them out from the library. And I have like very specific, like when I read them now, it unlocks like sense memories for me to where when I read the one called Miss Teen Sweet Valley, I remembered that this is crazy, but I would take them out from the library and do this really reckless thing of reading them in the bath. And they did fall in the bath sometimes. Well, not sometimes. It probably only happened once. It happened with Miss Teen Sweet Valley. And so I'm in my parents' bathroom in the house I grew up in, reading Miss Teen Sweet Valley in their bath, and it fell in the bath, and I'm like, oh shit, like I'm gonna get in so much trouble. This is a library book. I can't believe this. It's so reckless that I did this. I'm a bad girl. So I was like, let me see what it looks like the next day. I tried to like dry it out. The next day it's crumpled. It's crazy looking. It looks like if you took like 2 packages of ramen noodles and like you sort of like half boiled them and then like tied them together. Like, I don't know why. But then I went to return it to the library, and I'm like, I'm so stressed out. Of course, I don't tell my mom. And I just like stuck it between a bunch of other books and like gave it. And thank God they didn't say anything. So yeah, I love these books. And I revisited them during the pandemic, and I ended up kind of expanding the collection to where I have been kind of rereading them all and just discovering so much joy and so many layers, and have developed a relationship with a person on Etsy who resells them, who I don't know their first name, but they know things about me that would shock you. And I told Robert about this and said, would you care to join me?
And I said no over and over again. I do want to highlight, now that I've read enough Sweet Valleys, it is hilarious to me to picture you, the most reckless thing you can think of as like a young Jessica Wakefield, is reading a book in the bath. Like, you're reading a book about, let's say, a girl dating a college student and like being trapped in a cabin.
That was targeted to me, to my age of 11. Yeah.
Just truly, truly wildly reckless. I said no over and over and over again. And my first line of defense was like, look, I'm not going on Etsy to buy these books. I'm not going to find them. It's not going to happen. And that was quickly punctured. And listeners, you will learn that Pardo is many things. A Shakira lookalike, an insightful cultural commentator, and a persistent person. So she basically is like, well, okay, you're not going to buy them on Etsy. Like, what other options do you have? I'm like, well, they're not at my library, because I searched my local library and they were not available. And then I made the grave mistake of remembering a website called openlibrary.org, where books are, it's very strange. You have to experience it yourself, and I recommend that you do. You can search basically for any book, and you can check out a digitized copy of almost any book. And it really is just the scan of the book. And you can only check it out for an hour, and then you have to re-up it. And so we checked and found out that it was available.
I actually don't think that is the best option, because one of the things we found on it was that some of the books, they have these like weird like new versions of that are like not the right versions and are like completely different content, and it's actually really confusing to try to parse which one's which. So go to that website, have your fun, but do it at your own risk, and don't complain to us if you read the wrong book.
And so then I was like, okay, maybe we'll do this. And I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks of part of being like, well, have you read it yet? Have you read it yet? Have you read it yet?
Didn't I also make you a bargain at some point of, if I do this, you'll read it? And then I did the thing and you still didn't read it?
Yeah, I don't remember what that thing was, but yes, I notoriously, in the same way that Pardo is known for being persistent, I am known for being a liar. So finally, it was the night before I was getting on a plane to Boston, and I was like, well, I need books. And I'm just like, let me just see if Sweet Valley Hive books are available on, like, in an ebook format. And I saw that there's a collection of books 1 through 12 available for $22. And it's like, you know what? You only live once. I'm not even near the bathtub. I'm going to buy them. So I bought them.
Do you understand what a good deal that is? Like, actually, when you think about it, and I'm not going to tell you how much I spent.
I would never want to know. It would change how I see you forever.
But, well, remember
not in a good way.
Remember my Channing Tatum signed poster story, and I'll tell that on another episode of how much I spent on that. But anyhow.
Yeah, but that's like an investment.
Oh, but you don't know the fact that I then sold it for $100 to a person on Craigslist because I was so... It's the worst mistake of my life, except when I traded a tutu with this girl in kindergarten, and the tutu I ended up getting was so much worse, and I had like trader's remorse forever.
Yeah,
that and this Channing Tatum on Craigslist poster. But anyway, so the other place you can get... So, okay, that's a great deal. That's an excellent, excellent deal. Honestly, I would do that. The other thing you could do is, if you want the actual books, Facebook Marketplace, Etsy, and eBay. There are a lot of folks selling these in bulk for extremely reasonable prices. And then it just becomes a question of which numbers can you find. So you can check that out too. And you can also check out your local library. Anyhow, there's options. Those are your options.
Okay. So just to clarify what happens in the very first episode, Pardo is like, read the first book, just read the first book and we'll talk about it. And she mentioned wanting to do a podcast. And I said, I don't want to do a podcast. I hate the sound of my own voice. I can't. I absolutely can't. And I don't even know how it came up, but we came up with this idea that Pardo would record the first call without telling me. And then we could decide if we wanted to turn it into a podcast or not. So there's this like weird liminal space that I'm existing in where I know that the call is recorded, but she hasn't told me the call is recorded, so I think the call might not be recorded. And it gave me kind of the freedom to really speak out my truth about double love.
Yeah, I mean, I think we also just want to see, would you like these, like, would you like this to care to read more? And each time you have said yes, so.
Absolutely.
So.
Let's talk about us.
Yeah, why don't you take it away?
Okay, well, my favorite topic is myself. So I'm just going to do the very quickest of intros of who I am, where I come from, and where I'm going. So my name is Robert Marks. I use they and he pronouns. I was born in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I moved to Waltham, Massachusetts, which will become important in a moment, a little town outside of Boston, where I attended Brandeis University, a small non-sectarian private university founded in 1948. I am being interrupted by Pardo.
It's actually not an interruption because I raised my hand, so it's actually the definition of not interrupting is I didn't interrupt. I literally made it so you could keep talking, so you obviously don't know what interruption is, but...
Thanks for that. Just, when you raise your hand, it does make like a dinging noise on my end.
And that's between you and your settings, so don't bring me into that.
Okay, that's right.
The reason I raised my hand...
Of course.
What does non-sectarian mean? It means like not religious?
Not religious,
okay.
Yeah. From Brandeis, I lived in Boston for many years. I got a master's in teaching and was a high school English teacher and a Gender and Sexuality Alliance advisor. Then I went back to graduate school for a PhD in applied kind of educational research. And now I live in Mountain View, California, which is kind of outside of San Francisco and San Jose. And I'm a professor of child and adolescent development at San Jose State University. That's me. Pardo, where are you from? Where are you going?
Okay, first of all, this is so not how I imagined this. Like, I didn't know we were doing that kind of intro. I thought it was going to be like, okay, let me just do what I imagined this was going to be. Okay.
Go.
So Robert and I met in college. We met at Brandeis University, and Brandeis has this amazing castle. One of the kind of delightful aspects of the campus there, of which there are not many, but famously that
Dang.
castle housed Chums, Cholmondeley's, which was the inspiration for Central Perk, which of course the Friends, creators, Marta Kaufman and the other one went to Brandeis, and they based it on that. And I did have a boyfriend who worked there. Anyway, so it was our orientation, and at one of the orientation events, there was like a pizza and beer party in the castle. And it
No
was
beer.
No beer?
I can't. We were 17 and 18 in America.
Well, I just kind of remember being drunk, and I think you were definitely extremely drunk, so I guess we got drunk at our... I mean, I know you were, because we got drunk at our... The point is, the first time I met you, we're at that castle party, and someone introduced us, and you were like, you look like Shakira! And that was our friendship for a little while. Anyway, we became dear friends, and we took some classes together, which will become relevant, which we will refer to, including English literature classes and anthropology. And in some of the episodes, there's a couple professors I refer to without explaining who they are. So I do really quick want to say, when I say Flesh and Morrison, that's Billy Flesh and Paul Morrison. You can look them up. Anyhow, Robert and I reunited when we both lived in California for a while. Now I'm back in Toronto, and Robert and I have been kind of FaceTiming through the pandemic and whatnot, and I had shared... Wait, your preferred is them?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll cut that. Actually, I can keep it.
No, I'm also
It's not
like,
bad
we
to
can have a
clarify.
whole...
What?
We can have a whole
It's actually...
episode on pronouns.
I actually would love to. You had mentioned that your preferred was they, them, so... But also listening to the episodes, there's a couple times I definitely called you he. So I'm thinking now, is your preferred for me to default to they, them?
It's probably easier. I mean, in this episode, I've already referred to myself in the third person with he. So like, I'm also still figuring things
Okay.
out. So do not feel too much pressure.
Okay, but is it weird if I alternate? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Is it better to stick to one and be consistent?
Yeah, it's probably easier for everyone involved.
So
and
I'm just like,
this pronoun conversation is about like me and my desires. Everyone has different desires around pronouns, so please don't take what I'm saying as,
No, but that's what I'm asking. Like, if you had your druthers, which would you like me to go with from now? Like, right now?
I would say probably they, but I'd also like
it's okay if it slips up.
Hissy if you said he.
I understand.
But I understand when people do, and I love that for them.
Okay, we have an Instagram account at Sweet Valley Hive, and you should go there. We'll be posting all kinds of great stuff, TBD, but at minimum, sharing when we drop a new episode, which you should also subscribe and like and rate on whatever you're listening to, because I think that's a thing people who make podcasts say. We want to give a massive shout out to the absolutely brilliantly talented Elliot Carroll, who illustrated our cover image, which of course is loosely based on book number 3, Playing with Fire, and Yessie, who did our beautiful theme song.
If you're trying to Google them, it's best to Google YSSY space band. You can also find them on Spotify. They have an EP out and some really great other music in addition to our enchanting and captivating theme song.
And if you like Severance, they did a really super fun cover of the Severance theme song, and also Mandalorian, which I have no idea what that means, but it's something. They did that too. So
yeah.
All right. Good.
Great. Thank you for joining us on this journey. There is nothing funnier than me giving a 3-minute professional biography of myself and you going, "We met in college. He drunkenly screamed in my face." If that is not a sign, symbol, and signifier of our relationship, I do not know what is.
Thanks for listening to Sweet Valley Hive, hosted by Robert Marks and Rebecca Pardo. For more, check out our Instagram at Sweet Valley Hive. Theme song by Yessie and artwork by Elliot Carroll.